Okay, today I'm going to show you a soft Thai inspired makeup look and soft waves. Some of the products that I'm using today I have an affiliate link with. If you click the link and you make a purchase, I make a commission out of it and no extra cost to you. I don't like my intros to be long, so we're going to jump right in. We're going to do a little bit of skin prep. I have this Milky toner. So that I don't squeeze the product on the face and scare the client, I'm going to do it on top of the sponge and lay it over. I typically keep this mostly in the center of the face. Start off with toner pads to make sure that it's saturated into her skin deeply. And I usually focus on the forehead and the cheeks. Sometimes, depending on the shape of their forehead, you might have to fold the toner pad. And then I also want to put it over the nose just to give a little extra firming and moisturizer here. So I'm using eyelash glue to lift up the hairs. And it depends on their eye shape and their face shape. So I do try to keep it as like the same shape as what they have, but lifting it up. And it just depends. You just eyeball what you want. For this, since the tail is thinner, I want it fuller. So I had to place the hair in a way where I imagine drawing the eyebrow hair strokes and filling in the space so that it matches her face. Going in with pomade. So I want to fill in the arch a little bit more, so that's where I'm going to start. The fullness in the front is, I like the way that it looks, so I'm not going to go too much. I'm just going to fill in a little bit just to give some color and some dimension with hair strokes. And I'm just going to keep going until I get the shape to match similar to the other side. So the front, I don't want to go too much. I'm just going and flicking in between the hairs softly and not dipping in any more product. But when I go to the ends, I'm going to dip more product because she doesn't have too much going on back here and I want it to be more fuller. So that's when I dip in more product. And then when I notice that the brush is not, when the product is not as much on the brush, then that's when I go to the front. So right now it's distributing heavily, so that's when I focus on the back. And then when I feel like there's almost no more, then I go to the front and fill in the gaps. We're going to keep doing this until we get the shape that we want. I filled in this side and I like the way that this looks. So I take a step back, and then when I look at the eyebrow hairs, she does need a more fuller on the ends. So that's when I go in and make it look more even. So I will fill in this space to match the other side. So the eyebrows are not really identical. You just kind of have to figure out and keep taking a step back and look at the shape and see what you need to add more or take away from before you commit and carve it out with the concealer. Okay, mixing the eyeshadow primer with concealer, I'm going to carve it out. If you don't want it to look too thick, you could just leave this much and then blend out everything to give a more natural finish. Or you could build up the coverage and put more coverage. It's up to you. Okay, we're going to be using the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette, and I already did this side of the eye. So when we consider a client's eye shape, you have to ask yourself how much of this gap you want to show lashes and eyeshadow. So I do want to go a little bit higher than what she typically has, because in my experience, once I put eyelashes on, it doesn't look as dramatic, and I wanted to pop out in photos, so that's what I do. Going in with right. Okay. So you want to make sure they open and you double check everything before you move on to the next step. So we're going to go in with Fervor on the outer third. And I do want to extend her eyes here, so I will go fluff it out here. Dim. And we're doing a brown shadow liner. This is what keeps it soft. On the outer edge, I want to go up a little bit higher than the lash. So that gives a more lifted eye and an appearance of bigger looking eyes. I'm going to go in with a white light pink shimmer, and I'm going to use my finger and keep it down here. So this is a very soft eye makeup look. Open. And you want to make sure that when she opens, that's the ending point that you want it to be. But if it's not enough, you could go higher. Close. So yeah, I'm going to go a smidge higher so that when she opens, it pops up a little bit right here. Going underneath the eyes with Fervor. And you want to go 2/3 out. Going back with that same shimmer underneath to the inner corner. It's on your preference, but I like to make the inner corner pop out a little bit. I don't know what this part is called, or I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but I'm gonna fill in under here with Fervor to give that little pocket of like that eye bag look, and I think it's called Areole or Areole or Arisol, and with white eyeliner because this is what makes the well, this is not white, but it's more of like a nude, and this is what makes the eyes appear bigger. Right, this is my Big Thang lash kit, and the reason why I love this concept is because of all the pages. So sometimes I just let my client look at it and flip through the pages to find the one that suits her, and I label it by the most natural to the most dramatic, so it's just easier for my workflow for them to decide, and that also helps me gauge how dramatic they want it to look and how natural they want it to look. And if they don't like any of these and they bring out their own, that's also a different story, but this helps me guide, you know, the whole process. Okay, so just like that, she already picked out the eyelash, and it's going to be this. Open the eyes and I kind of place it right here, and she actually likes the length and the volume, so we will continue to do it. But let's just say that if they don't like it, all I have to do is just simply put it back and pick a different one. And if they don't like it, I place it back in, but we're gonna do a very natural eyelash look. So we're gonna stick with this and do some clusters just to fill in some space. For this look, I typically don't really cut off the ends too much. It just depends on the look that I'm going for. So if you keep the width of the lash, it will drag out to here, but I'm not really going for that look because I want to give her a lifted eye, so I do cut it off closer to the inner part of her eye rather than outer part. And then when I glue the outer ends, instead of gluing it on top of the lash hair, I go a little bit higher just to give a lifted eye effect because we want it to be elongated a little bit. So putting the eyelash that way makes it look more bigger. So I'm gonna place it in, and depending on how much skin they have here, you might have to lift up their eyelid and place in the inner corner to make sure that it's on top of the lash line. So for the outer corner, we're gonna glue it a little bit higher than the lash line. Open. And then push it up. So giving that little bit of a space right here gives a lifted eye effect on the end. I do like how natural this looks, but I want to give her a doll eye look. So I will add a few clusters in the front just to open up her eyes more. So I already added lash clusters to like the inner 2/3. And I didn't put any on the outside because I still want to keep that lifted look. So I will glue the lash hairs to the falsies. And then for here, because it gives a different effect, I do want more volume on here, but it still looks soft and natural. So because there's glue underneath, I also add extra lash glue. So I want to go underneath her lashes, and I pay attention to the middle part of her eyes. I want to make sure I start off here. And I glue from the bottom so that I don't have to worry too much about her natural eyelashes getting in the way. Stick up. So you want to make sure you press it pretty hard on the top to give a lifted look. And I'm going to keep continuing until I get to the 2/3. So I'm not gluing anything on the edge. So adding extra lash glue. Sometimes I go lift this up and press. and then press it against the lash strip. And I also sometimes hold it like this so that it could stay lifted. She does have a huge space right here, which I use the lash cluster and go past the inner corner of the original lash strip just to open up the eyes, but keep it soft. So like I said, I didn't glue the ends right here, so I will use a black lash glue to staple them to the falsies. And this is how I do the eyelashes, and the makeup won't smudge as much on the under eyelid. So it does get sticky, but I always tell my clients to remove with to soak the eyelashes with the makeup remover wipe or makeup remover that they have, and then slowly loosen all the glue and then pull out the lashes. So this is how I keep it as waterproof as possible. All right, by the time I'm done with the eyes, the face is already prepped and the pads dried up a bit. I'm gonna grab them all and look up for me, and then clean up whatever fall out underneath here with it. But I did purposely put the darker shadow underneath here on purpose, so I want to be mindful not to erase that area. Just clean out whatever fall out. I'm going to go in with the Natasha Denona Hygiene Primer Serum. So we're going to make sure this goes in on at least the center part of the face so we could keep the glow. And I do take it underneath the eye a little bit, but remember we purposely put the dark eyeshadow under there. Don't go above it and erase it. Just go underneath it. I'm gonna go in with the two primers that I typically use, which is the Smashbox and the Makeup Forever primer. I'm gonna mix them together. And I do wanna focus on the center of the face, the nose, the forehead, in between the brows, the chin, because I think she could use a little more smoothness, so this should do the trick. See how blurring that looks? Going in with the Natasha Denona High Glam Foundation. She is between N2 and N5. I mixed more of the N5 and a little bit of the N2 because she's closer to the N5. Using the same brush, I'm going to mix both of them together. When you pick up the product, first off, it's going to be more dense. So you want to pay attention to the center of the face. Usually the cheek is where I start off because that's where I want it to be the most concentrated. And then when I feel like there's only a little bit left or like lesser product on it, I will go in between. But I do want to focus on the center of the face for more coverage, and any spots that she might have or marks that I want to cover, I will go in and do that. So I'm just gonna do all over the face. So right now there's not as much product. That's when I go further back out here, because you don't want a cakey mess on the edge of the face. So you want to keep it more focused on here, but I am doing like a stamping, swiping motion so that it feels more natural and lightweight. And then for the forehead, I just kind of swipe back and forth when there's almost no more. This is my last step because I don't want too much on the forehead. And then when I complete the face, I pretty much have very minimal product. I will drag it down here because I don't want too much on the neck. And her neck is much lighter than her face and her shoulders, so you gotta have to try to balance which one you want, more darker or lighter, and just try to match it. Going in with the High Sculpt bronzer. I have it right here on my palette. I'm just gonna blend it out, twist and turn, and then when it looks about right, that's when I'm gonna stamp it onto her contour areas. And this is very natural and subtle looking. And I typically like to go in this angle for her face shape just to give a more lifted cheekbone. And whatever's remaining, I go a little bit on the forehead, but not too much. This just adds a dimension. And then whatever is left over, which is not much, I'm going to go down here because we don't want a very streaky line underneath the jawline. I'm going to contour the nose slightly. I typically go up here because most Asian noses have a dip right here, and in order for it to protrude or look like it's protruding out, I need to add contouring right here. So this makes that appearance of it popping out more because most of us don't have a really high nose bridge, so that's why. I'm gonna go in with the high blush. Remember, I am a makeup artist. You will see me put it on a palette. And the reason why I put on the palette is because you don't want to put the product heavily like this because it looks splotchy. When you want it to look more smooth, you want to blend all of this out first before placing it on the skin. So this is how I get a soft, diffuse blush look rather than just going straight with the product from the container and going straight at it. It just gives a more softer, diffuse look. So if you were confused why you always had splotchy looking liquid blush or cream blush, this is kind of the reason why. The placement for the blush might depend on the client's face shape or how much they like blush, but typically you want to get the remaining and go underneath the middle of the eyes. So underneath the middle of the eyes right here and up here. So whatever I have remaining, I kind of go up here like this because it just gives like a more diffuse, like blushy look. You don't have to do it. You can make your own twist to it, but this is my take on it. Going in with the High Glam Concealer, I'm just going to keep stamping it and swiping and stamping. Uh, Her skin in particular, it looks really good. There's no like flaws that I see and no spots or brown spots or anything like that or any acne scars. So I could do the swiping motion and get away with it. But if the person has acne or like spots that you want to cover, you want to make sure you do a stamping, pressing motion the whole time. But for her, she has pretty good skin already. I don't need to do too much. I could even do swiping like this and I'll get away with it simply because when the client has nice skin, you don't have to do too much work. So with a more dense flat brush, I'm gonna go in right here to make the bridge of her nose pop out more. And then going in with the same concealer brush, I'm just gonna tap, tap, tap until it's blended. When I do the concealer part, it does streak out the blush a little bit. So I will go back with my blush brush earlier that I did the blush with and then just go on top of it. I'm not picking up any more product. I'm just blending it to be seamless together. So I do like the finish of the foundation and how it looks like on her, and I want to keep it. So I will go in with a translucent powder rather than packing on full coverage foundation powders that I typically use. So we will go in with the one size translucent powder. You want to pick up enough product, but not too much. And then you're just going to slightly tap it everywhere because we don't want to move any of our cream products around. And if you swipe it, you will remove the product, but it depends on the look that you're trying to go for. I want to keep it looking like this as much as possible, so I will do stamping like this throughout the whole face. Don't forget the neck. Then I'm going to switch to a more dense, fluffy brush looking up and then go underneath the eyes. And then everything right here where you have creases, you want to go an extra mile with the powder on because these are the areas that typically crease. And you don't want to put too much product, you just want enough. Going in with the Natasha Denona bronzer powder. I want to also do a stamping method and slightly swipe it because I want to keep it natural looking. And whatever's remaining, I just swipe down here. I will take it down here just to darken it up so it can match better. Sometimes I do all the steps and I have to take a step back because I feel like her face needs to be brighter in the middle. So then I'll go back with a lighter concealer and go in here because I want to brighten this area up. And because I have the translucent powder underneath here, this is going to stick pretty well. And do a little brightness here. Carve it out. And wherever needs extra brightness. I'm gonna do bottom eyelashes just to elongate her eyes and make it look like wider. Okay, you see how much of a difference the bottom lashes make? I always start from the middle, and where the white liner and the shadow is, I want to go underneath the lashes. And the eyelashes, it depends on the look that you want to go for. I don't paste it down this way too much, because if you do it like this, it obviously looks more dramatic. But if you don't want it as dramatic, you lift it more higher. You do have to play around with the individual lashes because they get kind of messy with the glue. But basically, you kind of get what I'm saying. If I push this up, it looks more natural. If I push it down, you'll see the bottom lashes more and it appears more dramatic. When I get the inner corners to the inner 2/3 done, when I get to the back, I want to not glue too close to the lashes. I want to go a little bit down when I go towards the end. But of course, you do have to keep in mind the client's eye shape, depending on what their eyes could do. But you want to go a little bit underneath the dark shadow. So we're trying to do a more pouty lip. It's up to you if you want to mask out the lips with the foundation shade. So I'll do a little bit because this is what gives a softer look. So we want to keep most of the shade or the product shade in the middle and then diffuse it out. And I just went in with the foundation, the liquid foundation over to block off the skin color a little bit. And if I do that, I want to make sure I lightly dust it with translucent powder because this will help make the lipstick stick better. I'm going to go in with a lip liner. I want to keep it more in the center. So like everything here, if you can see. And fill it in. So you want to pick a shade that's not too dark, but not too nude. You want it to have a slight tint on the lip. And the reason why you want to use the lip liner on the center is because the lip liner helps adhere the lipstick product better. So I have lipstick right here. I'm going to use a fluffy eyeshadow brush. And I'm just going to fluff over on top of the lip liner. So this is kind of like a pinky nude. And I want to go all across the lip with it. And you want kind of like a diffused look, so you whatever's remaining, you kind of go over the top and over the bottom a little bit. And you're going to continue to do it until you get it the way that you want it to look. But make sure you go all the way around the lips. Same brush, I'm going to go in with a lip stain from Rom&nd. And we're going to slightly pick up a little bit and go towards the center. You might have to have them open up their mouth a little bit so you could get all the way in there so that the stain gets towards the center, and then you kind of diffuse it out. And then I want more gloss on her lips, so I will go with a clear gloss over it just to give a more juicy looking lip. And I'm keeping most of the product on the center. And whatever's remaining, just softly bring it down to the sides. So I do want a more glowy look. I will go in with the Delta spray. And I don't want to spray on the eye, so I make sure I cover it. When this is dried, I'm going to go in with the One Size setting spray to make sure that it's locked in. Same thing with the setting spray. Make sure it doesn't get on the eyelashes. This aerosol is in the air for at least a good minute, but then after it calms down, you want to make sure you spray on the nose. Going in with the Kiko liquid liner, I want to do a very thin line just to cover up some of the lash glue that we have up here. And at the ends, I want to go high and follow the shadow liner and very thin. You might have to press on it and pull and then go in between just to blend out the lashes with the light part of the eye. Just fill in whatever gaps that you need to. I'm gonna go in with Tone Up Cream. So I'm gonna do a little bit. I like to use the warmth of my hands. I don't wanna, I could use a brush, but I don't have one. Just gives a more toned up look. You don't want to go too crazy, it just depends. And depending on how it looks, I might double check, take a step back. If the face looks darker than it, I might add bronzer, but I like how this looks, so we're gonna keep it like this because we want to keep it natural looking. And this is what the makeup and the hair looks like. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure you subscribe, share, like, and comment, and I'll see you guys on the next one.